Welcome back to the channel. Me and Monty are proud to present the 57ppd module. That's right folks, it's finally here, and this promises to be the ultimate in clarity for VR in 2025. And since I have reviewed the ultra-wide model and of course the standard 50ppd, well, I'm really intrigued to see how this stacks up and whether this is the right module for your Crystal Super, especially as we're getting very close now to retina levels of clarity. And in this video, my plan is to test the 57ppd on a long simming session and to see whether it's any better or worse than the standard and ultra wide variants. So if you're interested in this video, stick around and stay tuned after a quick word from FS Academy. This video is proudly sponsored by FS Academy, and they've got a new range of mission packs for Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024 called Interceptor. This all new 30 mission training pack is designed to put your IFR skills to the test and includes a wide range of essential topics such as holding patterns, ILS, VOR and NDB approaches, VOR and NDB navigation, and these techniques you will learn will feel really rewarding and will stay with you forever. Take the first step towards IFR today and embark upon an unforgettable and rewarding journey. Please check out FS Academy Interceptor in the notes below. Okay, it's time to get into this video and we're going to go for a full flight in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024. And as you know, I've tried both the standard 50ppd module, the ultra wide, and now the 57ppd module. That is insane. I can't think of any other headset that can reach that dizzying level of clarity. But is it any good? Well, let's find out as we go for a full flight in the A2A Aerostar. Right then, this is it folks, the first time I'm using the 57ppd module, and the first thing I'm going to look for is Mura, which, yes, there is Mura, but it's very minimal. Just a little bit as you really look for it. Little bit of striping there, but honestly, for me, that's well within tolerance. And when looking down at the ground or at the aircraft, I don't see it at all, so that's fine. Now this is the A2A Aerostar, which is very close now to prime time because it's been in early access now for a while. I've been flying this a lot recently, funny enough, with the 50ppd module. So this is why we're flying this bird today, and they really have upgraded this bird. It's very close to final, and you can really tell the texture detail is a lot better now than it used to be with the first iteration of this aircraft. And you can see here you've got dirt and grime. A lot of the textures have been reworked. For instance, I'm not sure if I can get close to it, but yeah, I can even read the plaque at the back there that says the aircraft and the certificate, the model number, Aerostar model 600. I can read all that no problems. Now, one of the things I have noticed straight away is of course that decrease in field of view, which, yeah, absolutely, you can tell, but it's not like as big as I thought it would be. I'm not quite sure on the numbers though, so what I'll do is, well, first of all, I'll tell you my figures for the 50ppd, which is 126 degrees horizontal. But in terms of how it feels, because I think that's more important than actual, you know, the measurement in itself, is for me, it's okay. It's not stellar, but it feels fine. It is worth knowing though that I'm not a massive field of view guy. I'm all about visual clarity first. So really, this should, in theory, really impress me. So far, this definitely looks incredibly sharp, which I did expect. It should be the sharpest VR headset I've ever put on my head. And from this outside perspective, it looks really good. But, well, I think I'll know more once I get into the cockpit. Now, I have noticed, weirdly, there is some warping with this particular version of Pimax Play that I'm using. And I've always said with the Crystal Super that there is no warping that I can really see with the 50ppd version. And the ultra wide isn't too bad as well. There's a little bit on the sides, but the 50 ppd, there's absolutely no warping at all. With this, there is a little bit down low in the sort of lower portion of the display, and maybe a little bit as well actually on the horizontal. So there is a little bit of warping there. However, Pimax did send me a beta version of a new version of Pimax Play. So what I'm going to do is, before I go any further, I'm going to download that and try that out because it's a new distortion profile. So I'll see you in a moment. Okay, so I'm back again. Bit of a nightmare. I had to restart the computer. So we're now in a different place, but still at Dundee, but in a different parking spot. So this warping profile is a lot better. That is a bit of a relief, actually. I'm doing weird things, I know, guys, but I'm just checking for warping. That is a lot better than the official current version of Pimax Play. So Pimax, if you're watching this, which you probably are, definitely use this distortion profile, or at least build upon this one. But to be fair, this one at first glance is so much better. Right, so that's out of the way. In terms of chromatic aberration, well, let's just jump aboard this beautiful aircraft by A2A, which is quickly becoming my favourite GA aircraft. Let's just get rid of the chocks here. Like, for instance, I can see all the labels there on the landing gear, and I can read that. I can actually read that. And here's something else which I find really interesting, is the resolution that I'm pumping out. Let me just show you what I'm running with my 5090, which is what I'm running with this, of course. I'm not using foveated rendering at the moment because I want to show you the raw rendered resolution, which is 4350 by 4590. That is a lot lower rendered resolution than the 50 ppd module. So that means I'm already getting 35 frames per second in TAA mode whilst recording with 57 ppd with these settings here. So that's interesting. I'm now going to enable foveated rendering, which should also give me eye-tracked foveated rendering, which I think it is. That will give me a big boost in performance while still being in TAA mode. So, oh wow, okay, so this is something I think is really important to talk about, and I don't think many YouTubers will notice this because they're not geeks like me, is now I can run MSFS2024 in TAA mode at full 57 ppd native resolution and hit 45 frames per second easily with a 5090 admittedly, but before, with the 50 ppd module at native resolution in TAA mode with foveated rendering, I'd be getting around 30-35. So that's quite a big boost in performance, yet the resolution and clarity feasibly should be even better. That just goes to show you that obviously the field of view figures of this are definitely a lot lower. Right, anyway, let's now jump in the cockpit here. I've been messing around too much as it is, so get rid of that. And I can't wait to fly the latest version of the A2A Aerostar because she is an absolute beauty. And A2A, I'm sure you're watching this video as well. You know what? This is an absolute masterpiece. It really is. Anyway, let's get this fired up and check the clarity out. And if well, in the video, I might also show some through the lens footage if I get a chance as well. But yeah, it's so good to be back in this aircraft again. Not messing around with DLSS 4, none of that trickery. This is full fat visuals, TAA mode. So we'll get the battery on. So another thing I've just noticed here is sweet spot wise. I found this as well with the ultra wide, is that just a bit lower down, the sweet spot isn't quite as good in the vertical axis. In the horizontal, it's Probably not quite as good either, actually. Right, so fuel boost pumps are now on. Fuel flow is good. Throttle cracked. And we'll start the right engine first. Here we go. Let's see if we get a good start today. Oh, yes. I was a bit late as well with the mixture. Yeah, the distortion profile is definitely better with this version of Pimax Play. I will say, though, it's not quite as good as the standard PPD, 50 PPD module. Okay, so right alternator on there. I'm zooming in for you guys. Obviously don't need to zoom in with this. This should be the best clarity I've ever seen in the headset. Here we go, come on. Oh, we've got two good engines here, good start there. So I've got the GTN 750 fitted first, and then I'll change the GNS 530. We're going to go for a flight, guys, around the Cairngorms as well, out of Dundee Airport. So this should be a spectacular flight. Should have put the beacon on first, never mind. Not flying perfectly today, doesn't matter. I'll put the landing light and strobe on now, sod it. Right, so, oh, okay, right. So this is where I can actually definitely see, yeah, the clarity is tremendous. It really is tremendous. You really notice it with gauges like this, guys. I'll just zoom in for you here. These sorts of gauges is where you notice the difference. Like, I hear all the time people saying the Quest 3 is like as sharp as a crystal. Well, it might be like that when you're looking at here, but when you're looking at cockpit gauges, like for instance the pressure setting, which is 1015, and if you're wondering, I'm looking there, I can read that very easily sat here from quite far back. And this is when the clarity really makes a difference. Yeah, this is really clear, but I will say though, the sweet spot is smaller on this. I don't know why, but with these lenses the sweet spot is a bit smaller. The binocular overlap though feels really good, like really nice. Anyway folks, we'll get the Aerostar all warmed up and I'll see you in a minute at the end of the runway. And I can just see here that the eye tracking is working perfectly as well, so that's good to see. Right then folks, welcome back. We are all warmed up, but I have noticed that the windscreen is starting to fog up. That again is just one of those A2A little touches that I love. Can you see here how the windshield, and the windows is starting to fog up? So we'll put the fan on here, pitot heat on as well. So as I've mentioned, the field of view in this is definitely a bit lower, and what I'm going to do is test the actual measurements of the field of view once I've landed at the end of the video. So if you're interested in that part just before we wrap up and our conclusion, then please stick around, stay tuned as we do this flight and get to know the 57 ppd module. I must admit, it probably won't look like it on the video footage, but the FPS are excellent. That is one thing I can definitely deduct straight away, is funny enough, the rendered resolution is lower, giving me way better performance than the standard 50 ppd module, yet the clarity is, well, definitely as good, if not better. I will say though, there's not a massive difference so far in the clarity between 50 ppd and 57 ppd, and that's just because you're looking at diminishing returns at this point, you know. Anyway, let's just take off here, put the put this in as well. There's not going to be like a night and day difference. Oh crikey, what the hell, oh my god. My rudder pedals are far too sensitive. I don't know what happened there, but we managed to stay on the runway. Whew. Landing gear coming up here. Yeah, performance is very nice here. Wow. So at this point in the video, as we start heading out to the Cairngorms, it's going to be beautiful this flight, I just want to reiterate once again that this will depend on your preference for VR. What is the most important factor for you? And this is why I actually think that these different modules are really great, because if you favour field of view over, you know, eye comfort and absolute clarity, then the ultra-wide model is probably the better one for you. Although, for me personally, I was not a fan when flying for longer sessions. I'm talking like at least 3 hours, okay? For a couple of hours, I found the ultra-wide was okay, but I did find a bit of eye strain with that. Now, bear in mind again that that was a beta version of the software, so it may improve. I'm sure it will do. If you want, you know, the absolute best visuals, clarity and eye comfort, that's, you know, really good binocular overlap, well, the standard 50 ppd module is a very good compromise, because you're getting great field of view and really great clarity. So where this sits is that this should feasibly give you basically retina levels of clarity, 57 ppd. It should be insanely sharp. Interestingly, a byproduct of that lower field of view will also give you way better performance. Like, I'm getting really nice performance here. I'm not even using DLSS 4, and I'm getting 45 frames per second on the button, which is all you need. You don't need any more than that. You really don't. Being half of the FPS of your refresh rate is all you need for general aviation flying. Is this any sharper though? That's the question. Yes, I do think it is sharper than the 50 ppd, but it's not a huge difference. It isn't a huge difference. Let me now just change the avionics to the GNS 530. Wow, yeah, again, I can just tell that, I mean, it basically looks like I am staring at that with my own eyes at this point. It just looks like I'm looking at that. I'm looking at this cockpit with my own eyes. It's immensely sharp. But there is some trade-offs to that extra bit of sharpness. And that is the decreased field of view, which I will tell you now, folks, for me, I don't mind this. But remember, I'm not a field of view guy. I think for some of you, that might be a deal breaker, because I can obviously see more of the edges, the black edges of the display here. I could really kind of squash my face a bit more into it. I could even probably up the IPD a little bit more. But for me, I don't mind this field of view. I'm used to the Meganex, for example. And, oh yeah, I mean, but this is very sharp. It is incredibly sharp here. Let's go through this rain shower. This is real world weather. As you can see from my settings, they are pretty damn high. And I'm getting really good performance. Normally, this kind of flying, I would be using DLSS 4, which I'm going to use in a minute. Because funny enough, DLSS 4 can give you a sharper image when looking at the scenery and looking at steam gauges. It's only when looking at your sort of more touchscreen elements and your avionics screens, like the GNS 530, the GTN 750 and the G3000 cockpits, is where you'll really notice that extra bit of clarity. You know, this aircraft by A2A, I could not recommend it enough, folks. It really is an absolute beautiful bird to fly, a wonderful companion for a VFR tour, and of course it's well equipped for IFR, and it's bloody quick as well. Let's get rid of this screen here. We're currently nearly at 200 knots, and I'm not even at full manifold pressure, not even close. I can probably up it a little bit here, drop the RPM down, take the mixture back a little bit. You have to fly this correctly, otherwise things will break. This is a living and breathing aircraft. And yo, this looks so good. This looks so nice. Very, very nice. So yeah, this is supposed to be a grade 1 display in terms of Miura, but there is still Miura in it, and I think that's something you do need to understand about this style of headset, is the fact that you will get some Miura when looking at the white background here. And actually this aircraft is very useful because it has windows on the roof, and that there is like the worst possible scenario for Miura, and I can see some very faint lines. I personally don't find it too much of an issue. It's something that is, again, a trade-off. We're talking about trade-offs here. If you hate Miura, folks, if you can't stand it, like me actually, but this is okay, but if you really don't like any of it, then go for something like the Big Screen Beyond or Meganex, because the micro OLED technology means you don't get hardly any Miura if, well, you can't see it at all, especially in the Big Screen Beyond. And I don't have any in my Meganex, but I do think some people have seen a little bit of Miura, but I'm talking of like very, very slight, just you can't even really see it at all. This is a bit more obvious, but for me, and that's, you know, coming from someone who is a bit of a Miura snob, this is okay. This is okay. So yeah, lens wise, I do feel the sweet spot is just a slightly worse than the normal version. In terms of the warping, oh, this is so much better. This beta version of Pimax Play, they've got the warping profile really good now. I was a bit concerned when I first tried it because I could definitely see warping, so that's a non-issue for me. But yeah, you do need to make sure you're in that sweet spot, and once you're in it, the edge-to-edge clarity is good. I mean, I can move my eyes around fine. I can read most of this. I can read, you know, all of the airspeed indicator, my vertical speed, attitude indicator, my turn coordinator, all of the nav aids there. I can even read this if I'm just basically keeping my head completely still and then just moving my eyes. It gets a bit blurry about there. So yeah, in terms of sweet spot, it is definitely not quite as good. I don't really know why that's the case, because, well, I guess these are different lenses, aren't they? There's probably a higher magnification with this lens. Now let's have a look here at some of the beautiful scenery. This is the Cairngorms in Scotland. We'll do a bit of a flight over here and back round into Dundee, and then we'll do my last test, which will be the actual field of view numbers. So, but I think I'm getting to a conclusion already, to be honest. If you're someone who prefers field of view, and that is your main priority, then I think the ultra wide will be the one that you will love. And bearing in mind though that the eye comfort I don't think is as good, because you're really stretching that binocular overlap. I would prefer the standard 50 ppd module, even for those out there that love field of view, because I think 126 degrees measured, from my eyes anyway, is still enough. It's still good enough. Unless you really do crave field of view over anything else, in which case, fill your boots and get the ultra wide model. Look at this here. Now I do think for the majority of people out there, the standard 50 ppd module is the best of both worlds, really, in a way. You get that wonderful clarity, great binocular overlap, and a really nice field of view. I do think they nailed it, to be honest, with the original module, and that's the one I would still recommend over both this one and the ultra wide for most of you out there. Yeah, I think that's kind of where I'm at with this conclusion already, because the thing is, with this version, well, let's now talk about the fors and against for the 57 ppd. The things that are against the 57 ppd is the sweet spot is definitely not as large as the original 50 ppd. In fact, I do think that about the ultra wide as well. I think the sweet spot in that is a little bit compromised as well. You're going to get less field of view in this as well. What else? I think they're the two major things for me. Less field of view, although to be honest, it's not a massive difference, but it might be in the measurements. We'll find out in a minute. But in terms of actually just enjoying it, it's not that bad. But I think the sweet spot is the thing that I noticed the most, which is it's still good. Don't get me wrong; it's still far better than, say, let me think, a Fresnel headset like the Riva G2. Way better than that. It's probably very similar to a A2A Aero in terms of the sweet spot. Yeah. But the Crystal Super, the standard 50 ppd module, is really good. Like, it has a really nice sweet spot in my opinion. Oh, look at these visuals. Now, what are the strengths of this module? Well, I think personally that one major thing which I did not expect, and this has actually shocked me, is the performance. You get a very nice performance boost with this 57 ppd module. This is performing at least 10 frames per second, probably a bit more, better than the standard 50 ppd module, yet it still looks as sharp, if not sharper. In fact, yeah, it definitely is sharper. That's the second thing. It is sharper than the 50 ppd. It is insanely sharp, really. Like, but you do have to put it in the right place on your eyes. But once it's there, bloody hell, that is sharp. That is insanely sharp. Just enjoying these visuals here, folks. A2A Aerostar over the Cairngorms. Look at this. Absolutely beautiful. Absolutely stunning. So I think it's probably fair to say at this point that this is the sharpest visuals I've ever seen in a VR headset at this point. However, I do think the Meganex is very close to this, simply because of the crazy amount of pixels packed into that little micro OLED display. It is very close to this, but I do think this wins. And if I compare this to the Varia XR4, this is sharper than that. Wow, it's sharper than the Varia XR4. But it doesn't have as good lenses though, I will say that. And the field of view isn't as good either. And the last thing that I can think of at the moment as a strong case for the 57 ppd is just eye comfort again. It just feels very comfortable on the eyes because the binocular overlap, which I'm not sure what it is with this, just feels really, really nice. Really, really nice. This is what I love about MSFS 2024 and 2020 is the weather physics and the weather engine, just the shafts of rain appearing, and it's just, that is one of Asobo's hidden secrets with this sim, is how they're able to really replicate the heavy rain moving across with the wind. I think that's a remarkable achievement, it really is. Alright, let's go back to the GTN 750 again. Yeah, looking very, very, very nice here. Very, very nice. This is, yeah, definitely better than I was expecting. I've got a feeling, folks, I'm probably going to stick with this module for a while. And knowing me, because I am a clarity whore, you know, visual clarity in a headset has just been my #1 obsession in VR for a long time. So from a personal point of view, it's likely that I'll end up sticking with this module. There is a high chance of that, and I'll let you know, after a couple of weeks, because of course this is my first impressions, okay? Just like the ultra wide, I really liked it to start with, but when I did a full, in fact it was a 4-hour session in that thing, I could not wait to get that thing off my head after that. But you know what, I already think that if I did a mammoth session in this, that I would be okay with it, because it just feels very nice on the eyes. So again, remember, this is the QLED version, not the OLED version. I do think though it's remarkable how you can get all these different modules, and if you wanted to go a bit mad, you could buy the ultra wide model for DCS World when you need that extra situational awareness when you're dogfighting. You could get the OLED version of this, in the future. You could get the really high clarity version, the 57 ppd, when you really need that perfect clarity when you're doing IFR flights, and maybe the standard 50 ppd module when you just want a bit of the best of both worlds, which I do still think that's the best one to get for most of you out there, because I don't think most of you are going to be buying different modules. Some of you out there might do that, but I think for most of you, you want to know the best of the bunch, and I do think the standard 50 ppd module makes the most sense for most of you out there. But I do know, I know some people that are going to be watching this that want the absolute best clarity visuals you can get in a VR headset. The kind of clarity that just does not leave you wanting at all. This has it with a massive advantage, which is performance. You get way better performance with this. I think, I think that's a bigger deal here. That's a bigger deal than the actual clarity itself. Because I could run this with a 4090. I'm pretty confident I could run this way better with a 4090 than the standard 50 ppd module. So there's a lot to consider here, and as usual, it's not a clear-cut, very simple conclusion. Listen to the sounds of this. Also been updated. One thing I did moan about in the early stages with the Aerostar was the sounds wasn't quite raspy enough, but they've fixed that as well as fixed everything else. The texture detail, we've now got working fuses here. It's a very, very nice place to be. You know what? I would highly recommend the Aerostar any day of the week. And yeah, I've been flying all over the UK in this last couple of days. And even though it doesn't quite work so well with my motion rig, I mean, it's not too bad at the moment, but there is certain phases of flight where it'll go a bit weird. Okay, folks, I think it's now time to head back to Dundee Airport, and it's going to be one hell of a crosswind, about 30 knots, gusting. And we'll wrap up. I'll give you my full conclusion, and I'll also give you my field of view figures for this particular module. Yeah, I mean, look at this. Here, I'm reading this here. So clear. In fact, that's one thing I was going to do. I was going to try DLSS4, so let me just quickly do that for a moment. Here we go, and I'm using the very latest DLSS4 as well, which I can't remember the number, guys. I'll go for balanced here, and again, I'll just show you my settings. This is what I'm running here. And resume. Let it settle a bit. Right, so now I'm still at 45 frames per second. If I disabled that, I reckon I'd be nearly at 60 frames per second. Let me just do that a minute. Hang on a second. Okay, right, so that's really impressive. I've now completely unlocked the FPS, and with DLSS 4 with a 57 ppd headset using eye tracking, I'm getting 65 frames per second with a 5090 in this scene. Versus probably about 50 frames per second with the standard 50 ppd module. And now that I'm using DLSS 4, the gauges here are even sharper than they were before, and outside, using preset K, by the way, transformer model, DLSS 4, is even sharper. Yeah, that is absolutely incredibly sharp. Now, that's the funny thing about DLSS 4. If Asobo could just give us a sort of option to have a mask for this here, so that you can still run this in TAA mode, then we would be laughing, honestly. Because even now that looks sharp enough. I can read this, Echo Golf Quebec India, that there. I can read that from way back here, even with DLSS 4 enabled. That gives you an idea of the sharpness of this headset. Yeah, I'm really liking this. You know what? Sod this, folks. I'm going to fly for another couple of hours. I'm just going to do the test now. Okay, let's not land. But what I'll do is I'll stop the recording and I'll see you again in a couple of hours to give you my full conclusion of this headset, because I must admit I'm starting to like this more and more now. Right, folks, welcome back. I have been everywhere this afternoon. In about 2.5 hours, I've flown to, well, Edinburgh, then right up to Wick. Then I kind of followed the North Coast 500 route around over to Oban, and then down through Glasgow. I went south down to Carlisle, through the Lake District, and then back here. I've even had to refuel the aircraft as well. And I've had an absolute blast, folks. And I've got a conclusion. For me, this is going to surprise, well, it surprised me, in fact it shocked me. I absolutely prefer the 57 ppd. For me, I'm going to use this as my standard module for the Crystal Super. That's simply because, mainly, the performance difference, because it makes a huge difference when flying in TAA mode, which is my preferred way of flying most of the time. Simply because I want to see the cockpit gauges, especially with G3000s and all that kind of thing. Plus, with DLSS 4, I can reach a really nice performance level. In fact, I can basically run this sim ultra settings with DLSS 4 and get a solid 45 frames per second. That's the main reason, funny enough. But of course, also, it is just that bit sharper. And for me personally, that is also just something that is a personal preference for me, as well as the eye comfort. However, I do think for most of you out there, the standard 50 ppd module still makes the most sense, because you get a better sweet spot, better field of view, and the clarity is still very, very good. It is close to this, but if you know what you're looking for, like me, you will see that difference. I'm pretty confident there'll be lots of people out there that will say there's no difference in the clarity, but it all depends on what you're really looking for. If you're gaming, for instance, if you're, you know, just casually flying, you probably won't notice that difference in clarity. You just won't. But if you really look for it, you will see it. In things like this, it's just a bit cleaner here, so much cleaner here, you know, and I imagine what it's like with the G3000 panel as well. Oh yeah, yeah, I actually really do like this. This really shocked me how good this is for me, for my own personal use case. So there we are, folks. I think it's absolutely fantastic that there is different options out there, and it all comes down to what you want in a VR headset. That's the key here, you know. And I'm really glad that Pimax has provided such a different variety of options. Right, let's now go in for a landing here. This is going to be quite lively, I'd imagine. So we're putting the prop fully forward. That will help us slow down. Mixture fully rich. Landing light is on. T's and P's are all in the green. We're pretty much at the gear limitation speed here, so we'll put the gear down. Yeah, the performance difference, which is something I was not expecting at all. And that means as well, that's something else. I could actually super sample, which is insane. I might even try that in a separate video if I get a chance, but I could feasibly super sample the 57 ppd module and then get the same performance that I get with the 50 ppd module, and then the difference in clarity will be even more pronounced. It will be like eye-poppingly sharp, you know? So you could do that as well. Yeah, I might try that actually. But since I have been basically over 3 hours now on this test, which I can't believe. In fact, it is getting late and I need to get the dogs out for a walk, as well as actually have some food. Yeah, I'm really glad I was able to do that. Have a full flight, a long session in this. I feel a lot more comfortable in this than the ultra-wide version. It's just, I think the only thing, the negatives for me is the sweet spot isn't quite as good, and the field of view is definitely not as good either. And that for you watching this might be a massive deal breaker, which I totally understand. But that's fine, because there is options out there. This is Dundee. Yeah, looking out there, God, it looks so sharp. Right, we have got a crosswind, so I'm going to add a bit more speed into this approach. The Aerostar, she is quite a stable bird on approach, but let's see how we get on here. In fact, actually, the wind has died down a bit over the last couple of hours. I'm noticing now it's not as bad as I was thinking. 20 knots at the moment. Eye tracking working a treat, and this is with the standard eye tracking scale. I can bring that in even more and get more performance that way as well. So yeah, I think the specification for the 57 ppd in terms of GPUs is lower. You could run this with a 3090, 3080 Ti, 4070 Ti, maybe even in TAA mode as well. Here we go then. From the outside view, oh, butter. I'm happy with that landing. So yeah, in conclusion, and a surprising one for me, this is the one I'm going to use the most, the 57 ppd module, because mainly the performance difference, the boost in performance using this is very welcome indeed, plus the extra clarity. However, the downsides are there is less field of view, and the sweet spot is also not as good, especially vertically. But now, to finish off the video, we're going to do my measurements, which I still haven't done yet, to see what they are. That'll be really interesting. That looks like a nice pub. I think I'll go there for my lunch. In fact, actually, it's not lunch time, it's bloody tea time now. Or dinner time, depending on how you like to call it. But yeah, performance is really nice here. And look at this, you can see the steam coming off the windshield again. I love that feature. Anyway, we'll get parked up and we'll check out the raw measurements of that field of view before we end the video. Okay folks, so welcome back to the last portion of this video, and that is to test my field of view figures, which I don't even know what they're going to be myself. So let me just make sure this is on correctly. Now I can't remember what my vertical field of view figures were, but I'll let you know with a little pop-up in a minute. But let's start by doing the important one, the horizontal. So here we go then. The horizontal figures. Let's do this. Okay, so there's more than 32, that's good news. Here we go. Oh. Oh, okay. That interesting. That is quite a difference, to be fair. If I just push a little bit, although I wouldn't normally do that. Okay, yeah, we're only getting about 104 degrees. Wow. I'm actually quite surprised by that. That is a lot less than I thought. That just shows you, doesn't it, that I am not a field of view fan as much as I am a visual clarity fan. Right, let's see what we get now for the vertical. Oh, wow. Yeah, again, it's a lot lower. Wow, I'm only getting about 96 degrees. So that's quite shocking, folks. I think this is the funny thing about these sorts of tests, is you'll look at that and think, that is awful. There's no way I'm going to enjoy a VR headset with such a small field of view. But don't let just the results kind of fool you, because being in the headset, especially something this sharp, isn't as bad as you think. Especially with that increased binocular overlap, gives a better sense of 3D presence. Now before I go, let's do the clarity test. It kind of makes sense. See if I can read the bottom line at the furthest point. That is a tall order, so we're on the line there. PEZOLCFTD. No frigging way. Look at that. I haven't tested that with other headsets before, but tell me in the comments, people who've tried this before, is that good? I reckon that probably is very, very impressive. I'm not sure if I could do that with the standard module. And of course, things like the glare test, well, that's not going to be an issue with the spheric lenses. That's one wonderful thing about, you know, glass spheric lenses. There's just absolutely no glare there at all. That's absolutely fine. Anyway, how do you get out of this? Thank you very much. Right, that will do. So, in conclusion, which I think I've said a few times in this video, for most of you out there, I still think the standard 50 ppd module is the one to go for. It has a fantastic, perfect compromise of great field of view versus, you know, the smaller field of view of this and the wide field of view of the ultra wide, but you get very nice binocular overlap, really nice clarity, and great eye comfort. If you really want the really best field of view you can get from an aspheric lens, then of course the ultra wide version makes sense. But keep in mind, for me at least, I found it after a long session to just be a little bit uncomfortable on the eyes. Now for this, I find this very comfortable on the eyes. It has a bit more clarity, but you get a big trade-off with a lot lower field of view. So I think for most of you out there, it doesn't make sense unless you're a weirdo like me and just really wants that extra bit of clarity. But I think more important than that, and this could be a consideration for you, is that less field of view you're getting, the lack of field of view, means you get a big boost in performance in MSFS 2024 and other things as well. I'm sure, like, God knows what, whether you're playing first-person shooters or, you know, the like. But this channel is all about flight sims, and yeah, you get a big boost in performance and you can enjoy that clarity. I do think also that this doesn't have such a great distortion profile, although it's actually fine. I don't find it a problem. It's not quite as good as the standard 50 ppd module, and of course the sweet spot isn't quite as good as well. There we go, folks. That's my review of the 57 ppd module. If you'd like to support the channel, I do have an affiliate link. I think the code is VRSimGuy, something like that, and you'll save yourself a little bit off a brand new Crystal Super. But for now, that will do. Thank you so much for watching. As always, please feel free to subscribe, and I'll see you again very soon. Oh, I can't put my thumb up, look, that's a shame. I'll wave. That'll do. Take care. I'll see you very soon. Bye-bye for now.